and those contactees trusted me with these Polaroids of these beings on ships.
I've never seen some of these images before.
The beings would be at the door of the craft and invite these young boys to come in. That's unbelievable.
I've never seen some of these images before, so I'm really excited, and thank you for sharing them here on this show, because this is a real treat. I said that before, and I really meant it.
Yeah, some of the images come from Italy too, and a lot of people have trusted me with these amazing images.
Okay, so we have to get into this right up front to set the groundwork for this conversation. I've known you for years, right? And you used to say, contactees, right? You know, you kind of, if you couldn't touch it, if it didn't have metal or some kind of, military story to it that had been documented, you weren't really that into it. You were thinking a lot of people were kind of, loopy and making things up. That's not the case anymore. Something has taken you over into the field of consciousness and contact around the UFO story.
I started with Alan Hynek putting pins in maps.
Right.
And then I didn't care what was inside the craft. I just was reporting data, and we have enough data. So I had to graduate to graduate school. This is graduate school. Consciousness and contact is graduate school. And for me, it happened to me in very weird ways, because I began working in Italy, because I was in Italy from 1992 to 2007. I had lived near Rome, near the Vatican. And so I began doing stories in Italy, and you'll see some of the images from those. And those contactees trusted me with these Polaroids of these beings on ships. And then I came back to the United States, and I said, well, if there's like human-type beings that are visiting people in Italy, there must have been human-type space people visiting people here in America. And I had to go way back to the giant rock days, to Adamski, to Menger, to George Van Tassel, to Robert Short, to all those people. And then that's when I got these incredible photos from the Wendelle Stevens archive of Menger with these Venusians. And then so I said, where'd they go? Well, all these people in the 50s and 60s, would they all go home? Because now our field is only abductions, only little gray aliens, only, cartoon-like
a less
situations.
elegant turn was taken. Yeah.
Yes, and it was done, I think, in the 60s with the Betty and Barney Hill abduction case. And but it was very convenient for the managers of the UFO phenomenon, because that keeps people under fear, and you can't bond with a clone, which is an extraterrestrial biological entity, as Colonel Corso told me. You can't bond, but with these people, with these space people, you can invite them to Starbucks.
Right.
And if we start, empathizing and feeling like God created people on other planets, it really runs contrary to whoever's managing, and I'm not going to use the word government, I don't think the government is managing this, who's managing the disclosure of UFOs.
And managing public perception toward an end. Like you say, there was a distinct turn that happened from what was essentially friendly, kind of earth-friendly messages.
Space Brother movement.
Space Brother, even, human-like entities, attractive human-like entities, as you say, to mantis entities, to gray entities,
to reptilian
entities, and I mean really to the dark side of the UFO phenomena. I'm not saying the other entities don't exist, but what happened as a directive to shift our focus away from the positive to the frightening?
Yeah, and I'm going to add that I was very close to John Mack, Harvard University.
Yes, we all love him.
The man.
Yeah.
And he told me that the DNA harvesting in that program had ended in 1994. So I'm wondering why in the world we're still on that and we can't get past that. So what I've learned in Latin America, in Argentina, Peru, I've been to Chile, I've been to Colombia. What I learned there was much more solid information about who is really visiting the planet now and why.
Are you going to share that with us?
I knew you were going there.
Well, it would be irresponsible of me not to ask that question.
I started going to Latin America, to 𝗪𝗘𝗧 Wells, and all the followers of 𝗪𝗘𝗧, and that's 𝗪𝗘𝗕𝗦𝗧𝗧, and I think you've had him on the show, and 𝗪𝗘𝗕𝗦𝗧𝗧, and
All lovely men. I've met all of them.
yeah,
They're delightful.
Louis Ostacio Martins, and just those. I did 6 interviews. What they told me was that in the 1970s, 𝗪𝗘𝗧 went into the Chilca Desert, and with automatic writing was able to have contact with witnesses, 100 witnesses, because they camped out there, and the beings would give them precise times that the craft would land. And they were all young boys at the time. I even interviewed 𝗪𝗘𝗧's brother Charlie. I got 2 witnesses of that group that told me that the beings would be at the door of the craft and invite these young boys to come in. That's unbelievable. And that the message was that they were wanting to make contact with the Latin Americans. In 2014, when I went to Chile with Ricardo Gonzalez and he had contact, the message was ecological. The message that Ricardo got from those beings on that ship, those beings from Mapu, was that we would have a problem with water. So here we are in 2015 in Atacama, in the Atacama Desert of Chile, and they're telling us we're going to have a problem with water.
Yeah.
Well, water, major hurricanes, rain, constant, unbalance in the planet. So if anybody out there is wondering what the messages are today, they're no longer nuclear power, even though I think they're worried about our capability of destroying ourselves. The messages are heavily ecological.
Okay. And that's fair enough, and that's been going on actually for quite a long time now. So it begs the question also, we have these amazing photographs that are new. Some of them are new to me. I've seen quite a lot, but not some of these. Who was Wendelle Stevens? And how does he factor into this story and his archive, which was, it was sought after as rarefied material?
Yeah, Wendelle Stevens was, I think, the best researcher in the whole world. And I have photos of him, but I also interacted with him at the Laughlin conference. But you know, Wendelle Stevens researched the whole thing. He was the only one that brought international people here. He would go to South America, he would go to Italy, he would go to different places. So what's important about the archive that I have is the Howard Menger photos and the Val Thor pictures.
Yeah.
Because what you'll see is that I began doing research on August Roberts, who was the photographer on the Howard Menger, gatherings. Howard and his first wife Rose would hold court, and they would have 100 people in their orchard. And what would happen? On one particular occasion, he told August Roberts, I have the audio tape of that, there's going to be 3 people there that are not from this planet. And August Roberts later said in the tape, I didn't know who they were, but they were overdressed. And
for a picnic.
For a picnic. And not only that, they look like actors from Hollywood. So there's
we can take a look at some of them right now.
Yeah.
So here they are, and tell us who the 3 of them are, and identify besides Valiant Thor who the others are.
Valiant Thor is sitting on the outside, and there's his brother Don, and then there's Jill. And Jill, I guess from the book Stranger in the Pentagon, is one of the commanders of a ship, his ship Victor 1, which is supposedly parked at Lake Mead in Nevada. So here are these photos. Some of them are in color and some of them are in black and white. But one of the slides that I have is the letter from August Roberts, who took these photos. And he said these people were different from the other people there. So I think this
a lot of people look at this and say, well, they just look like handsome people overdressed for a picnic, right? A lot of people.
It is, except that you have to take the testimony of Howard Menger. And Howard Menger, High Bridge, New Jersey, was the East Coast version of Adamski, and basically Howard Menger...
Let's talk about this, because some people don't know. I have done a couple shows that included Adamski in them, but I think it's fair to set it up again. Who Adamski was, because we're going to be looking into his photos as well, and also who Menger was, and some of the chief characteristics of him that made him different.
Okay, well, Adamski was... in 1952, had an incredible encounter in Desert Center with a human being from Venus named Orthon. And it is provable. I've also left you some photos of the plaster casts of his feet. And you need to go to Glenn Steckling to Adamski Foundation because he's kindly provided those. And when a being comes off a ship and there are two sets of plaster casts of his feet, and there's 6 witnesses, and I think they were 6, and the plaster casts were made by George Hunt Williamson.
But what was unique about the plaster casts?
Well, because there's markings on the soles of the shoes.
Okay, so just that they
the
existed.
markings on the soles of the shoes. I mean, there are different markings on either sole of the shoe, and you know, it wasn't only that happened at that particular. This is November 20th, 1952. Okay, with all those witnesses, not only that, but Adamski had given, upon request to Orthon, a glass plate, because they used to do photographs on glass plates in those days, and it was returned on December 13th with all these hieroglyphic type writing on that they did research on later in Brazil and found out that was a similar kind of writing. So what happened is you have real artifacts. You have his shoes, you have 6 witnesses, and you have this glass plate. So the Adamski story has been totally dismissed. Well, what contactee has physical evidence like he had? You know, and not only that, he had a mandate. And the mandate was go around the world and talk to different heads of state, and Pope John the 23rd, who gave him a medal. I've seen the medal, and tell them that we are on a timeline where we can make money going into outer space with a space economy, because he talked to John F. Kennedy about this, or we have to stay with the war economy, but if we do, we have to create the wars.
If you enjoyed this, make sure to watch the next video on AwakenZone. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell, but you won't want to miss what's coming next.